Vincent of Beauvais and Cesarius relate that there was a certain noble youth who had reduced himself by his vices from a state of opulence in which he had been left by his father to one of such poverty that he was obliged to beg his bread. He left his country that he might be able to live with less shame in a place where he was unknown. On his road he one day met a man who had formerly been his father's servant. This man, seeing him in such affliction on account of the distress into which he had fallen, told him to be of good heart, for he would take him to a prince who was so liberal that he would be provided with all he could desire. This abandoned wretch was a sorcerer, and one day he led the poor youth to a wood near a lake and began to address an invisible person. The youth asked him to whom he was speaking. He replied, "To the devil." But seeing that the young man was alarmed, he encouraged him and told him to fear nothing, and then continued to address the evil spirit and said, "Master, this young man is reduced to the greatest poverty. He would wish to be reinstated in his possessions." "If he will obey me," replied the fiend, "I will make him richer than ever. But in the first place he must renounce God." This horrified the young man, but being incited to it by that cursed magician, he complied and renounced his God. "But that is not enough," added the devil. "He must also renounce Mary, for to her we are indebted for our greatest losses. Oh, how many does she not snatch from our hands and lead back to God and save?" "Ah, no," answered the youth, "that I will never do. Deny my mother, indeed, she is all my hope. Rather would I go begging all my life long." And so saying, he left the spot. On his return, he passed by a church dedicated to Mary. The afflicted youth entered and cast himself on his knees before her image and began to weep and implore her to obtain him the pardon of his sins. He had scarcely done so when Mary began to intercede with her son for the poor wretch. Jesus at first replied, "But mother, this ungrateful soul has denied me." But on seeing that his mother did not cease to pray, he said finally, "O mother, I never deny thee anything. He is forgiven, since thou askest it." The person who had purchased all the property of the young spendthrift was concealed in the chapel and heard all that passed and witnessed the compassion of Mary towards this sinner. He had an only daughter and determined to give her to the young man in marriage and make him heir of all he possessed. And thus did this youth recover both the grace of God and his temporal possessions by the means of Mary.